Hey guys, today's lesson is on section 3.1, linear equations. What is a linear equation? It is an equation in which when it is graphed, it forms a line. Linear has the word line in it. So when we graph these equations, they will form a line. It will be difficult to describe what linear equations do have. They have a lot of algebraic expressions in them. It's a lot easier to describe what linear equations do not have. There's 4 things that linear equations do not have. First thing being exponents. If you see an equation with an exponent in it, we know that it would not graph a line. That would be considered not linear. The second thing that linear equations do not have is multiplication of variables. For example, if we have an equation like y equals xy plus 3, as you could see, these two variables are being multiplied to each other. Those are multiplication of variables, therefore this would not be linear. That equation would not graph a line on the coordinate plane. The next thing linear equations do not have is division of variables. For example, if we have the equation y equals 3 divided by x plus 1, as you could see, we're dividing by a variable. 3 is being divided by x. Therefore, this equation is not linear. It would not graph a line. And the last thing that we could describe that linear equations do not have are any other operations than addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. If you see square root or any trigonometry, sine, cosine, tangent, that would not represent a linear equation. So down below, what we're going to look at is whether the equation is linear or not. So in number 1, what you're asking yourself, does this equation have any exponents, multiplication of variables, division of variables, or any other operation other than add, subtract, multiply, and divide? In this case, this equation doesn't have any of those things that linear equations don't have, so we're going to write linear next to it. Let's check out number 2. As you could see, number 2 has an exponent in it, therefore this is not linear. Number 3, does that equation have any exponents, multiplication of variables, division of variables, or any other operations other than add, subtract, multiply, and divide? No, it doesn't have any of that, therefore this is linear. And number 4, does this have any exponents? No. Does it have any multiplication of variables? Yes, it does. See those two variables being multiplied together? Therefore, this is not linear. What I'd like you to do is just take a second and determine whether 5, 6, 7, and 8 are linear or not linear. Pause the video and play the video once you get the answers for all 4. Alright, so as you guys could see on this page, all of the odd equations are linear. None of those have exponents, multiplication of variables, division of variables, or any other operation other than add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And all the even equations are not linear. Let's go through all the even ones one more time just to describe why it's not linear. Number 2 isn't linear because it has an exponent. Number 4 isn't linear because the variables are being multiplied. Number 6 isn't linear because we're dividing by a variable. And number 8 isn't linear because we have a different operation in this equation other than add, subtract, multiply, divide. We have a square root, so that would represent not linear. If we were to graph 2, 4, 6, and 8, we would not get a line on the coordinate plane. If we were to graph 1, 3, 5, and 7, we would get a line on the coordinate plane. These are linear equations. If an equation is linear, I'm going to go back to the top here, we could put it in what's called standard form. Standard form is represented by ax plus by equals c. That is the model for an equation in standard form in which The x term is first, the y term is second, then the equal sign is next, and the number that's all by himself, that doesn't have a variable, is at the end. This is what standard form looks like. So if an equation is linear, we could rearrange it so it's in that form. The three rules for standard form is that a, or the coefficient for the x term, cannot be negative. That would be the number that starts off the equation here. The second rule is a, b, c have to be integers, not fractions. And the third rule is that a, b, c have a GCF of 1. What does that mean? That means all three of the coefficients, a, b, and c, cannot be divisible by the same number. Let's take a look at the odd problems and put these in what's called standard form. Again, we're just going to rearrange the equation in number 1 so it's in the form ax plus by equals c. The x and the y term is on the left side, and the term with no variable is on the right side of the equal sign. So for number 1, which term is on the incorrect side? Well, I know that that is the term with the x in it because that has to be on the left side. So how am I going to move it over to the left side of the equation? I'm going to add it to both sides. Y plus 2x is y plus 2x equals 5. And since we added 2x on both sides, negative 2x plus 2x is 0. Is this in standard form yet? Do I have the x term first and the y term second? No, I don't, so I just have to switch those two terms. Y plus 2x is the same as 2x plus y equals 5. And this would be representing the equation in number 1, however, it's in standard form now. It's just a special form. We're rearranging the equation so it looks like ax plus by equals c. What would be the a coefficient here? What would represent a? That would be the coefficient in the front of the x, or in the x term. That would be 2 in this case. B is the coefficient in front of the y term. It's just the number, not the variable. That would be 1 since there's no number in front. And c is always the number without a variable. It's on the right side of the equal sign, and that would be 5. Let's go ahead and check out number 3. Number 3 is also a linear equation. Therefore, we could put it in what's called standard form. Standard form, the model for it is ax plus by equals c, showing that we just want to rearrange the terms so they're in this particular order. The x term first, the y term second, then the equal sign, and then the number that is all by itself with no variable. Notice we have 3 terms in this equation. One of the terms is 6, one of the terms is negative y, and one of the terms is 2x. I want to rearrange these so the x and the y are on the left side, and the term with the number with no variable is on the right side. In that case, that c value, or the number that should be on the right side, is 6. So how am I going to move it over to the left side? What we're going to do is subtract 6 on both sides, which will leave us with negative y equals 2x minus 6. What needs to move to the left side? That would be the 2x, so I'm going to subtract that on both sides to get negative y minus 2x equals negative 6. Just like problem number 1, we now need to switch the order of the y term and the x term. The two terms are negative y and negative 2x, so if I switch them around, we'll have negative 2x minus y equals negative 6. Do I have the x term first, the y term second, the equal sign, and then the number at the end with no variable? Yes, I do. However, there is one more step for this equation. Since the rule number 1, is that a cannot be negative. A is being represented as the number in the front of standard form. What we need to do is fix it since it is negative. What are we going to do to fix it? We're actually going to divide everything by -1, which will now make our a value positive 2x, and coincidentally it's actually going to change the signs for every term in the equation. So the -y divided by -1 is positive y, and -6 divided by -1 is positive 6. So our equation in standard form would be 2x plus y equals 6. What is the a, b, and c value? What are the coefficients? A is the coefficient for the x term, so that would be 2. B is the coefficient for the second term, or the term with the y in it, that would be 1 again. And C is the coefficient to the right of the equal sign, that would be 6. Let's go ahead and check out number 5. Number 5 is a linear equation. It doesn't have any exponents, multiplication of variables, division of variables, or any other operations other than add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Therefore, I could put it in what's called standard form. ax plus by equals c. We're going to rearrange these terms so that it is in this very specific order. There's only 2 terms, technically, in equation in number 5, in which we know that the term with the y in it needs to go to the left side of the equation next to the x term. How am I going to get rid of it on the right side and put it over on the left side? We're always thinking of doing the opposite operation, which would be subtracting 5y on both sides here. We would end up with -3x minus 5y equals 5y minus 5y is 0. There's nothing left on the right side of the equation, so the right side of our equation would be 0. This does look like it's in standard form because we have the x term first, the y term second, then the equal sign and the number at the end. However, just like number 3, we know it's not in standard form yet because my a coefficient, the number in front of the equation, is negative, and we're not allowed to have a negative number. How do we fix that? Just like number 3, we're going to divide everything by -1, in which coincidentally just changes all of our signs. -3x divided by -1 is positive 3x. -5y divided by -1 is positive 5y. And 0 divided by -1 is 0. This would be our final standard form for number 5, in which our coefficients would be a would be 3, b is 5, and c in this case is 0. A, b, and c are always just numbers. They are integers. A is the coefficient in front of the x, b is the coefficient in front of the y, and c is the value to the right of the equal sign. Here comes our last problem. This is a linear equation because it doesn't have an exponent, multiplication of variables, or division of variables, or it doesn't have any operations other than add, subtract, multiply, and divide. It does look like it's in standard form already. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. That's the model, in which in this case we do have x first, then y, then the equal sign, and the number without a variable. However, this is a tricky problem because there is a rule that we noted before in which a, b, and c, that's rule number 3, have a GCF of 1. What does that mean? That means in this case, a is 3, b is 9, and c is 6. if all of those numbers are divisible by the same numbers, we're going to divide it, and it's almost like simplifying the equation. So is there a number that goes into all three, A, B, and C, 3, 9, and 6? Yes, there is. That would be 3. So the greatest common factor is 3, not 1. So what we're going to do is divide all the coefficients by 3 to get x plus 3y equals 2. And this will be our standard form. I know that's a little tricky and sometimes hard to catch because since it looked like it's in standard form, we just have to remember if we could divide all 3 of the coefficients by the same number, we must do so. It's almost like simplifying a fraction, right? We're simplifying an entire equation by dividing it by the same number. In this case, our a value is 1, the coefficient in front of the x term. The b value, or the b coefficient, is 3. That would be the coefficient or number before the x or before the y, and the last coefficient, or c, would be 2. Please let me know if you guys have any questions on the lesson, and I'll